Good morning. Good morning, distinguished guest. This morning, I will present about new trade and investment policies for growth. I have been working with Mr. Supanath Satsibutiwan and his team in preparing today's presentation. This morning, we heard about new industrial policies. Therefore, we need to revise our trade and investment in line with new industry as well. What we would like to see happening is focusing on improving the infrastructure towards high value economy. So we need to adjust our trade and investment policy in order to incentivize more production for local entrepreneurs and to prevent unfair trade practice. So we need to change tax and non-tax measures, and also quality of products and rules and regulations for service sector and rules on competitiveness. So currently, trade and investment policies are not in line with economic infrastructure because we have inconsistent tax policy and structures. And secondly, tax measures that overprotective of the market, which does not incentivize the manufacturers to improve the quality. And third, legal barriers to investment in service sector. Service sector has not developed as it should have been, and the level of competitiveness is quite low. And fourth, there are some gaps in regulating. That's why it could create unfair trade environment. So inconsistent tax structure. In the past, if we look at import tax for WTO members, also called MFNs, MFN's tax rate, on average, it has declined quite significantly. Now it's at 10%. If we look at the tax structure, we can see that our tax structure promote export, raw materials imported. The tariff rate is lower than tariff collected than finished products. So we as a result, we have lower costs and allow us to compete with other countries. For instance, in automotive industry is quite big industry in Thailand. And we import car parts. The import tax is quite low, but when compared with certain vehicles we imported from Europe, the tax is higher. Prices of cars are higher as well. That's why car manufacturing in Thailand has the level of competitiveness is lower than in the past, but because we have a lot of trade negotiation with many countries. In orange, these are finished products. In white, raw materials. The actual tariff that we collect after trade negotiation, the rate is lower. And since there are a lot of FTA, we have less bargaining power. That doesn't mean that it would allow us to compete like before. We need to adapt, such as tariff structure for EV and its components. If we look at MFN rates, the tax structure for imported EV is higher than parts and components. But once we concluded FTA with China, we can see that whole vehicle that are imported tax rate is zero, but some parts such as batteries, the tax rate is higher as a result. That this doesn't promote local production. And if we would compare with EV from Japan, FTA in Japan, they collect higher tax for finished vehicles. So previously, Japan was the largest vehicle manufacturer, so that there's inconsistency here. And another example that we can see clearly is a robot manufacturer in Thailand for patients. We need to import parts, special motors from China. The import tariff, it would be higher if we import the whole robot. So Thai manufacturers do not have any advantage in competing manufacturer in China. Other than inconsistent tax structure, we have non-tariff measure as well that is too protective of the market. I would like to discuss about coffee industry. Some of you may wonder why we have very few coffee blenders in Thailand. Partially, we have to look at our tax structure and the quota system. What is quota system? Which is we try to protect Thai coffee manufacturers in Thailand. For those who import under the quota, they pay lower tax, but outside the quota, they have to pay higher tax rate for coffee. For quota, they pay only 30%. Outside the quota, they pay up to 90% for coffee beans. For finished products, the tariff rate is only 49%. So outside the quota, they have to pay a higher tax rate. But if they want to manufacture coffee beans, they pay higher. That's why coffee blenders in Thailand, they do not grow as much as they should be. If FTA that we concluded in ASEAN, among ASEAN countries, even though tax has reduced to 5%, there are certain conditions for importing coffee beans or blended coffee or raw coffee beans. They need to purchase coffee beans at least not less than the imported volume. So no matter how much for the coffee you can produce, you cannot sell everything because there is no incentive in order to improve the raw coffee produced in the country. Many of you, why I mentioned about coffee is not really that big business, but if we look at our sectors in agriculture, importing of agriculture products are under quota, and there are certain conditions to be followed as well. For example, for wheat, which can produce bread and noodles, importing wheat 1 part, you need to purchase local maize 3 parts. So the disadvantage of quota or similar to quota, it does not incentivize agriculture to adapt themselves. It would add raw material costs for continuing industry. If the cost of agriculture raw materials. This processed food will have higher costs. It prevents new business from entering the market, and quotas had been allocated according to the past history. If those who imported more in the past will receive higher quota for newcomers, they cannot compete. And by having this quota system, we need to distribute the quota. Exploitation could take place as well. Quota is different than tax. It does not generate revenue for the government. When we look at non-tariff barriers, we can see that it adds a lot of burden. It adds more import costs, same or more than tariff. For instance, when we transform these measures in, if we compare with tax for agriculture products and meat, it is more than tax. So the measures that would affect the cost of imported goods other than quota system, also registration and licensing, application and fees and customs duty that are collected as well. Trade and investment policy that is not conducive to revising or changing infrastructure, which is not the same as the service sector. Many of you may have seen already why we have very few service provider in telecommunication sector. Probably we cannot offer suitable prices to the consumers. If we look at service sector, there are a lot of legal obstacles which are not conducive to investment. If we have to look at Foreign Business Act, there are certain conditions for foreigners. They cannot hold share more than half, and in order for foreigners to work, they need to apply for a work permit as well. And renewal of work permit is quite complicated. If you look at the Service Trade Restrictiveness Index, we can see that Thailand has very high limitations. We are ranked number 4 among 51 countries, and the number has not changed so far. So we have a lot of limitations. So as a result, the impact on the service sector, we have a lot of rules and regulations which limit the investment, which also reduce the possibility of creating good jobs in certain sectors. And some businesses, they do not compete in terms of quality because there are very few players, such as in telecom business. And by having legal system which allow foreigners to hold less than 50% share, as a result, they use nominee to hold shares on their behalf, as you heard from the news. So they lack accountability in conducting their business, such as construction business that we heard from the news several months ago. And finally, in regulating the investment, there are a lot of gaps. We cannot prevent unfair business practice. Last week on 11/11, I believe a lot of you shop for goods, a lot of cheap goods on offer. T-shirts, 12 baht, or plastic plate for 1 baht imported from other country through different platforms, but we had no idea what is the qualities. T-shirt, maybe you wear it only once and it's torn already, and cheap plates, how can you know whether they are produced during the production process? It could be contaminated. So good low quality goods and services and cheap price flood the market, whether through regular channel or through different platforms. What we heard in the past several months about relocating manufacturing base that they are producing in Thailand because they couldn't produce elsewhere, and these goods are produced without any standard. Or even in China, many businesses relocate their manufacturing base to Thailand because China has improved their quality standards. So there is a lot of goods flooded targets. So about 45% of members of Federation of Thai Industry face the declining sales due to low quality and cheap price and flooded the market. So due to global change, we need to adapt our investment and trade policy in order to cope with new changes. The global context has changed, as we can see clearly about the reciprocal tax rate. Trump administration, the market flooded the Thai market from China, and new standards on environment and also ESG from several countries, including European Union as well. That's why it creates new challenges. We need to compete in order to find new export market. We have to deal with low quality products that flooded the market. Our traditional products cannot compete in terms of price anymore. It will be more difficult, and our business need to adapt. We have to comply with ESG standards in order to move towards green economy. So trade barriers is not the answer for Thailand anymore. If we want to increase tariff or non-tariff barrier in target industry, there's a possibility that we could breach international trade agreement. We could be retaliated by our trading partners, etc. We do not incentivize Thai business people to improve their quality and standard, and increased costs can affect other manufacturing sectors and can affect consumers directly, such as importing steel bar that can have impact construction business and as a result home builders as well. And how can we change our trade and investment policy? Which direction should we moving to? So trade and investment policy, firstly, we need to improve the manufacturing based, either moving to high value, to cope with high value change, or to support, to improve Thai products up to international standard, and in order to promote new service sector, in order to create good jobs. And secondly, we have to cope with unfair trade practices, such as preventing low quality products from entering the market, or prevent monopolization. And also we have to work proactively in penetrating export market. We have to find new export market with high value, aiming for high value market. And in order to improve manufacturing market in Thailand, we have to reduce trade barriers that can distort the market. We have to improve tariff rates in order to be able to compete with our trade competitors like China and Japan that have different tariff rates. By changing the tariff rate for finished products and raw materials and reduce non-tariff barriers, changing these measures or switching to tariff barriers, and also developing good production standards and sustainability. First one, we can use as a condition for government procurement in order to improve the standard in line with international standard, and also often free market in order to create good jobs in Thailand. This morning we discussed about PCB. I would like to cover a little bit about in industry related to PCB. In order to have procurement standard, in order to have more added value, we can look at the example from smart city. We heard from the government. The government is promoting Bangkok and other provinces to improve their own city, so that they need to procure things from abroad. Why we don't use this opportunity in order to incentivize Thai businessmen to improve the quality? Maybe we have to develop standard or open standards. What is open standards? Open standard, you can connect your system with manufacturers abroad without limitation. And in several systems, if you purchase from brand name products, you have to connect with that system. You cannot purchase parts from other brands. By having open standards, it would open another channel for our producers to enter the supply chain, or allow Thai manufacturers to be able to receive technologies from companies abroad, but by having local end-of-life management, and by getting rid of expired products, how can Thai manufacturers become involved in this process? This morning, we talk about pet food industry. We have a lot of potentials to improve even further. So it is quite necessary to improve quality of Thai products in line with international standard, by also in order to have higher standards, by have improved the quality in the supply chain. We have to be more stringent on regulation on workforce and environment. We have to improve data system in order to increase the traceability in the supply chain, so that we can trace back the process of manufacturing, and to support private sector to participate in foreign markets. We need to have a database on export market, so that business sector can penetrate foreign markets better. And I mentioned about reducing the quota on importing raw materials, such as if we import wheat, we need to purchase maize as well. So this is another limitation. We need to import maize at the same time while we import wheat. And we have how to create Thailand as a hub of wellness industry. We have to open free service in order to create good jobs for Thailand. We need to allow foreigners to hold share more than 50%, so that some foreigners might want to invest in this industry. And the area where we are lacking, we may allow foreigners to enter or to work, so that there will be knowledge technology transfer. And as you heard from the minister, we have to reskill and upskill Thai workers. And also, we need to develop occupational standards so that it can be accepted by other countries. And finally, we have to improve the standard on data privacy as well. In Europe, if they want to share data on their patients, they need to follow the standard, so that to allow data to be transferred or shared. And secondly, coping with unfair trade practices. Firstly, monopolization. We need to revise our law very quickly. You heard in telecom business, no one is regulating telecommunication business. So we need to have an agency regulating telecom market. And for platform business, we need to adopt rules and laws and regulations, and because they can exercise market dominance quite easily in Thailand. And also we have to prevent low quality products from entering the market. Many agencies cannot conduct traceability because they are not controlled products. We need to increase the standard to allow more product control by improving the standards of manufacturers, whether labor standard or in of life management. And also we need to improve legislation as well in order to allow business to be able to respond to come up with counter dumping as well, and monitoring and evaluation. We have to be more transparent, whether in terms of enhanced efficiency according to the risk level, such as for imported products. We have to be able to evaluate the risk, and we have more trading through platforms. It is possible to require platforms to control the products that is below standard, and especially that we need to coordinate more among different government agencies. And in order to penetrate market abroad and expanding more FTA, we have to look at the proportion of Thailand export to trading partners. 54% is exported to countries where we have FTA. 46% is being exported to non-FTA countries, and the proportion of FTA is 84%. So for trading partners where we do not yet conclude FTA, such as US, EU, and in Persian Gulf, we need to accelerate in concluding FTA with these countries. At the same time, we need to expand the scope of the existing FTA to allow us to gain more advantage on tariff negotiation, and we have to reduce tariff barriers for service sector and for trade in goods and trade in service as well. And we have to promote the private sector so that they can cope with the good governance under new FTA. We negotiated with the United States partially. We want to open 99%. So what we have negotiated with US, we should use as a basis in negotiating with other countries. And in order to negotiate, in order to reduce tariff with trading partners, we look at the average tariff collected from Thailand, the countries that we concluded FTA with, such as Japan, China, and India, tariff rates collected from Thailand is quite close to other countries, but at the same time, countries that we do not have FTA, we collected higher tariff than competitor, especially Vietnam. This is quite important. We have to expedite the process in concluding more FTA. We already negotiated with FTA in order to reduce tariff for Thai products that US does not produce. We need to consider as well. And as we can see in previous slides, additional cost from non-tariff barriers, the value is higher than real tariff in many countries. Therefore, we need to negotiate in order to reduce non-tariff barriers. But at the same time, we have to negotiate on tariff, whether in terms of product standards and also goods origin as well, and other limitations on trade and service and movement of personnel as well. In order to penetrate new markets, we are negotiating FTA with EU. In order to penetrate big markets, we need to change our standard that would allow us to negotiate. For instance, FTA EU and Indonesia, we just signed the agreement. In order to, we have to discuss about fair competition. EU have some conditions in order to prevent favorable treatment to state enterprise, especially for digital trade and private data protection. EU legislation indicates that personal data, cross-border data transfer can be done with countries having the same standards only, and in terms of sustainability. If trading partners do not comply with environmental standards or labor standards, their privileges can be revoked as well. So in conclusion, in order to change our trade and investment policy in order to promote growth, we have to look at tariff and non-tariff measures, goods and manufacturing standards, rules and regulations in service sector, and also regulating competitive. In order to have new developments, we must not leave anyone behind. So we need to come up with mechanism to cope with transitional period, whether in planning, adapting by working with private sector. We have to come up with a time frame and to revoke the import quota. We need to have compensation mechanism for opening free market, such as using FTA fund in order to support skill development or enhancing productive capacity for farmers, and to have mechanism to help SMEs to adapt themselves, such as using Thai Climate Initiative Fund in order to support reduction of greenhouse gas emission from SME. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
คุณเน
Thank you very much, Kun Nevin Sinsiri.